Okay. Okay, life stages, the 8 stages of human development and early trauma. If human development is the study of how people change throughout their lives, how and when does this development happen? Many scientists and psychologists have studied various aspects of human development, including ego psychologist Eric Erickson. He examined the impact of social experiences throughout an individual's life and theorized the psychosocial development happens in 8 sequential parts. What are the 8 stages of human development? I will delineate that. Stage 1, infancy. The challenge that must be met in that stage is trust versus mistrust. In the first stage of human development, infants learn to trust based on how well their caregivers meet their basic needs and respond when they cry. If an infant cries out to be fed, the parent can either meet the need by feeding and comforting the infant or not meet this need by ignoring the infant. When their needs are met, infants learn that relying on others is safe. When their needs go unmet, infants grow up to be less trusting of adults.
Dave, I beg your pardon. This is the grammarian. When it says here, we're now viewing your screen, are you showing us a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see the PowerPoint. Can anyone else see it?
I can see it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone else who can't see it?
I can see it. Dave, if you could increase your volume a little bit, please.
All right.
Oh, let's see. I could move up the microphone more. Is this better? Yes. Okay. Stage 2, toddlerhood. Independence versus dependence is the challenge in toddlerhood. Like in the first stage, toddlers go through this stage responding to their caregivers. If caregivers encourage them to be independent and explore the world on their own, toddlers will grow up with a sense of self-efficacy. If the caregivers hover excessively or encourage dependence, those toddlers grow up with less confidence in their abilities. Stage 3, preschool. The challenge to be met in preschool is initiative versus guilt. During the preschool years, children learn to assert themselves and speak up when they need something. Some children may state that they're sad because a friend stole their toy. If this assertiveness is greeted with a positive reaction, they learn that taking initiative is a helpful behavior. However, if they're made to feel guilty or ashamed for their assertiveness, they may grow up to be timid and less likely to take the lead. Stage 4, in elementary school. The challenge to be met in elementary school is industry versus inferiority. When children begin school, they start to compare themselves with peers. If children feel they're accomplished in relation to peers, they develop strong self-esteem. If, however, they notice that either other children have met milestones that they haven't, they may struggle with self-esteem. For example, a first grader may notice a consistently worse performance on spelling tests when compared with peers. If this becomes a pattern, it can lead to a feeling of inferiority. And in adolescence, the challenge to be met is identity versus role confusion. The adolescent stage is where the term identity crisis originated, and for good reason. Adolescence is all about developing a sense of self. Adolescents who can clearly identify who they are grow up with stronger goals and self-knowledge than teenagers who struggle to break free from their parents' or friends' influences. Adolescents who still deeply depend on their parents for social interaction and guidance may experience more role confusion than teenagers who pursue their own interests. And stage 6 in human development is young adulthood. The challenge to be met in young adulthood is intimacy versus isolation. In young adulthood, which begins roughly at age 20, people begin to solidify their lifelong bonds. Many people enter committed relationships or marriages, while others form lifelong friendships. People who can create and maintain these relationships reap the emotional benefits, while those who struggle to maintain relationships may suffer from isolation. A young adult who develops strong friendships in college may feel more intimacy than one who struggles to form and maintain close relationships. In stage 7, which is in middle adulthood, the challenge is legacy versus stagnation. In middle adulthood, people tend to struggle with their contributions to society. They may be busy raising children or pursuing careers. Those who feel that they're contributing experience a sense of creating a legacy. On the other hand, those who don't feel that their work or their lives matter may experience feelings of stagnation. For example, a middle-aged adult who's raising a family and working in a career that presumably helps people may feel more fulfilled than an adult who's working in a day job that feels meaningless. Stage 8, that's in late adulthood. The challenge is integrity versus despair. As adults reach the end of life, they look back on their lives and reflect. Adults who feel fulfilled by their lives, either through a successful family or a meaningful career, reach ego integrity, in which they can face aging and dying with peace. If older adults don't feel that they lived a good life, they risk falling into despair. And what are the effects of early trauma on these stages of life? Early trauma has a long-lasting effect on the psyche since it is stored in the subconscious mind where it is continually replayed throughout our lives. This has a negative effect on self-esteem and is very difficult to reverse. Trauma is not always a one-time event. In many cases, it is a daily, intense stress. The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. In 1998, the Kaiser Permanente Insurance Company and the CDC did a study on responses to a questionnaire given to policyholders on the level of trauma they experienced when they were children. The study went out to 17,000 policyholders. Over 70% of the policyholders responded back, indicating that they had experienced some degree of trauma as children. This indicated there is a far higher incidence in trauma in childhood than what was previously thought. The study also indicated that the trauma experienced in childhood tends to follow us throughout life and affects us both emotionally, mentally, and physically, and may be a factor in our premature death. Looking at the pyramid over on the left-hand side of your screen there, you can see the adverse childhood experiences at the base of the pyramid, which in many cases begins right in some cases right at conception, and in some cases begins right after birth, and that causes a disrupted neurodevelopment, which means that there mind and is not thinking correctly, that because of all the stress that they experienced in their early life, possibly even from birth. And that causes social, emotional, and cognitive impairment, which causes adoption of health risk behaviors like eating too much, drinking too much, drug use, etc., which causes disease, disability, and social problems, which ends up in a premature death. So that's what this study proved, and is that adverse childhood experiences are fairly common in our culture, and they end up with all kind of social problems, which leads to adoption of health risk behaviors, which causes disease and disability, health issues, and early death. And let's see, trauma therapy or other coping strategies can mitigate the effects of this early trauma. There are numerous coping strategies that can help us live with this early trauma. Anything that is relaxing and non-stressful is a coping strategy. And that can be a lot of things. Whatever is relaxing to you and isn't stressful, that works for you. Might not work for someone else, but it works for you. Sometimes having a coping strategy will not be enough to live with the trauma, and it must be resolved through trauma therapy. There are also many forms of trauma therapy. We tend to get used to a certain lifestyle, however, and this can even be a stressful lifestyle that we lived with our entire life. Resolving this and reversing it to a more positive lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle, can take a great deal of time, determination, and positive mental outlook. But it is possible to reverse it. And that's all I had. Thank you.